My name is Derek McCarter, and this is my informative speech entitled Difficulties of Youth Pastoring in the 21st Century for Communications 101 at Liberty University Online. We live in a very scary time, a time of heavy warfare and conflict, and I'm not talking about what's happening across the Atlantic, but what is happening here in our hearts and the hearts of people around the world, especially in our young people. This war is a unique war that Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." This is a struggle and this is a war that on the surface we are losing with the young generation, and it's scary to think about what could result from this war. Ken Ham on the Answers in Genesis website poses a question concerning this topic with an answer. His question says, how long does it take to lose a culture from a Christian perspective? And his answer is, actually it takes only one generation. In one generation, our adversary can eliminate the Christian worldview from earth, and he is working really hard at doing so. He's effectively doing this with our younger generation. Adolf Hitler knew this and was quoted in the Nazi Conspiracy and Aggression Volume 1 saying, "He alone who owns the youth owns the future." This is a war that we're in, a fight for our youth, and our culture is winning. And how are they doing this? I believe there's two main ways, even though there's a list of ways our culture is doing this and our adversary is doing this, but the two main things is from a media and technology driven generation to a skewed educational system in the 21st century, and it's leaving youth pastors with the difficulty of reaching a generation for Christ. See, teens are bombarded with information and messages more today than ever before in humanity. And George Barna has published his research in the book called Real Teens concerning this very topic. In his research, he found that teens spend around 6 hours per day interacting with mass media, whether that be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. And there are a few difficulties that arise out of this. Number one is you have an identity crisis or a false identity crisis. See, the 21st century teens explain that they want people in their terms to be real. They want authenticity. But we have a generation who hides behind screen names in online groups like Anonymous, who hide behind a no-name character to get their message across. And what tends to happen is they start believing this false identity, and youth pastors can't reach this false identity because it's not real, but they're hiding behind this mask. Which leads to the second problem with technology and media, and that is the problem of appearance and acceptance. See, in a world of social media and technology, we have become obsessed with self-appearance, and it is deceiving us. An appearance of happiness, success, and excellence, when in reality our lives are failing. And teens have lost the ability to see this reality, and they end up with a false sense of identity, all in the name of acceptance. The Economic Times quotes a professor of pharmacology at Oxford University, Barnos Greenfield, saying that Facebook and Twitter have created a generation obsessed with themselves, who have short attention spans and childlike desires for constant feedback on their lives. But this feedback they're looking for is based on us wanting to accept their false identity when everything else is crushing around them in their life. See, here's the second area youth pastors have difficulty in reaching, and that is our skewed educational system. The biggest hindrance here in the state of Tennessee is the implementation of the Common Core curriculum into our school systems. The Common Core system boasts in training students into critical thinkers, but what is actually happening is a lot of information being downloaded into the minds of students without a thought process, leading to a lack of real knowledge, but just memorization of information. So since students now are lacking in true knowledge and lack the ability to think critically about any area of life, the school systems and the culture and our adversary is implementing a relative view of all information, meaning there is no truth. So when they teach underneath all of everything, they're teaching that there is no morals and there is no truth and there is no real ethic. Daniel Ingbar wrote in his article, "Is Common Core really teaching children to be moral monsters?" that the public school curriculum instructs children that any moral claim whatsoever from "thou shalt not kill" on down the line should be taken as opinion, as paltry product of belief with no special purchase on the truth. So instead of encouraging critical thinking about morals, it feeds them that there is no central truth and that everything is relative. And just as an over-exaggeration example, we all know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, but according to this teaching, 2 plus 2 can also equal 5, and it's just as valid as 2 plus 2 equals 4. So when it comes to teaching against evolution, homosexuality, and whatever the Bible says is truth, they're led to think about these subjects as opinions and not as actual truth. Ingvar concludes his thoughts on Common Core morals by saying this: if there are no moral facts, then there are no moral truths. If we teach our kids that when it comes to ethics, every view is valid, then we will fill their brains with doublethink and lock them in a labyrinth of moral relativism, or they'll be locked in a maze, not being able to find answers to the real issues in their life. So as I close this speech, David Kinnaman states in his book, You Lost Me, that the spiritual lives of millions of young people are at stake. The fact alone should be reason enough to care. The war that we are in leaves a generation at stake, and even though there's a whole list of problems in the 21st century generation, I believe these are the main culprits, because they can't think for themselves, and they're consumed with media. So from the media and technology-driven generation that has a false identity to a skewed educational system in the 21st century culture with no absolute truth, this is the reason youth pastors are having a difficult time in the 21st century reaching a generation for Christ. Thank you.